That was a nice introduction. Oh, great. Thanks, guys.
I'll give Sarah some day.
Yeah, do you actually, yeah,
Sheila, you want to just. Yeah.
How many people are Zooming?
no, there's 4 now. Oh, no, one's Ritz. No, there's 4.
We got
Who
Jenny.
am I even talking
Matthias,
to?
Jessica,
Hello,
and
that works. Okay, guys, I'm just taking a second to introduce myself. I'm Sheila Trujillo. How you say my last name is that you have to remember that my husband is my true hero. So it's Trujillo without the R. Anyway, I work up at First Colony Mortgage, which is just upstairs as you walk into the right. I am there 90% of the time. So if you guys ever have any questions about mortgage lending, you just come on in. You guys are going to be like fire hosed with information over the next few weeks, and it's all great real estate information. There's this other little piece of your business that has to do with mortgage lending and kind of that world. So when you get to where you feel just a little bit comfortable with all of this, come sit down with me and I will give you my little rundown on the world of mortgage lending. So another cool thing that I want to tell you about learning from all these agents, as I learned from all these agents, just sitting in these classes sometimes, I realized that it doesn't matter who you are, what your personality is, that if you do the things they say and be true to yourself, that you will be successful. So I have little water bottle stickers. Okay. One says, stay humble, hustle hard. And the other one is a cute flowery one. So I will give you these and I will turn the time over to Clay.
Oh, fun. Thank you, Sheila. That's good. Hey, all you Zoomers, can you guys hear okay? Can I get a yes or a no? I see a thumbs up from the office. Okay, thanks you guys. I'll just pass around this little microphone. If we can though, let's just introduce each other really quick. Maybe we'll skip you Zoomers. Sorry about that. But just so I can know who's in the room, will you just tell me what's your name?
Christian.
Christian. How long have you been in the business?
A month.
A month.
Yep.
Awesome. Welcome. And
Thank you.
what career did you leave to do this?
Did the restaurant for about 20 something years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So leaving food to sell houses.
Well, yeah, and also I'm a real estate investor.
Oh, very cool. Awesome. Long-term or short-term? Flips or holds?
Holds.
Sweet. Very cool.
Rentals
Very cool.
For now.
For now. Yep. Shane, how long have you been in the business? Just talk loud. We'll let all your friends know.
I've been in the business for a little over 8 years.
Yep. Shane's going to help teach this class today.
Now I can do a new construction rep see. That's about it.
Hey, we'll go for it.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I've had my license in 2017. I've had about 5 transactions and had some health issues in between. And I'm also very introverted, so I have a hard time of getting out of my comfort zone.
Oh,
So
let's
I'm
talk
ready
about
now.
that today. We're going to talk about that today. Andrea, welcome. You're a veteran too then. 5 deals and gosh, 6 years. So, yep. Kim, introduce yourself.
I'm Kim Mingle and I am Clay's new assistant and super excited about it. And getting my license, I'm over 70% done with my classes.
70% there. Good job. So you're the youngest one in the room. These guys are all veterans compared to the youngest one in the room. I'll try to pass this microphone around as much as I can for you Zoomers. I'm glad you guys are at least on Zoom, but today is the first session of Ignite. And I like teaching this class because I want I don't want to just talk at you. I want to make sure that we get everybody off on the right foot. Also dive into what your needs are. This is entirely different than last time I taught Ignite. Last time I was like 1 month in the business. All of them were like 1 week or still auditing and in classes. Whereas here, Shane's 8 years. You've been an investor for probably years and years. We have a pretty good group of experienced agents. And so we can deviate from the course material and talk about what you want to talk about. You've got me for 2 hours. Apparently they want me to teach 3 full day classes in 2 hours. It's not going to happen. So the Ignite material though is pretty good. at teaching the fundamentals. And so I don't want to just breeze over it so fast that you guys don't have the opportunity to at least understand the fundamentals, of getting into this. So I'm going to try to use some of the slides as kind of a guide, but again, just cut me off. So I guess first things first, I'll just tell a little bit of a story so you can get kind of a sense of what I think you should get out of Ignite. When I first joined Keller Williams, I was a new agent. This was the first brokerage I joined as well. It was in 2007. I took the test over Christmas 2006. I got licensed January 3rd, 2007. Who knows what happens in 2007? You weren't in the business quite yet. Yeah, 2007, in my opinion, will go down in human history as one of the most profound years we've ever had. It was the year that the iPhone was invented. It was also the year that AI was invented, as well as cloud computing. It was all in like 2007, which I think will historically look back at 2000 being a monumental year. Of course, I look back, it's like, yeah, that was when 22-year-old Clay got his real estate license. And I thought I was the smartest guy in the room because everyone was making all this money because of the bubble. And I learned very quickly that the world was going to get flipped upside down. But I was naive and I didn't know. So January, I got into KLV, I interviewed a bunch of brokerages, and I found Keller Williams as like this new disrupting cool company. It was only up in Salt Lake. I had an uncle that was an owner of RE/MAX, and I interviewed with Coldwell Banker, and I interviewed with a company called At Home Realty, which has changed its name about 10 times since then, and it is currently, I believe, Fathom down the road. If you know Fathom, which was, they've literally had iPro, and before that was HomeSmart, before that was something, and then before that was At Home. They chase kind of whatever the latest franchise is that they want, I guess, or something. Anyway, I interviewed with all these brokerages, and I chose Keller Williams for a few different reasons. And I'm always curious to see if this resonates with you guys, and Zoomers, you can spit out too. But I came to Keller Williams, and a few things resonated with me. And I like to start with this because I think this is a good place for you guys to reflect. You chose Keller Williams for specific reasons as well. I chose Keller Williams because A, they use language such as, it's not about our brand, it's about your brand. One of my very first meetings with Keller Williams, they said, hey, we are here to support you, the agent, and help you build your business because you're the face of your own company. We don't have billboards, we don't have Super Bowl commercials or stuff like that. Our job is to be an agent-centric business and to have education, so you can go build your business. And that resonated because I was a little 22-year-old, wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to have my business. The other thing that was very interesting at the time that the other brokerages didn't have is a capping model that was entirely equal and fair. Meaning, when I went to my uncle at RE/MAX, he said, well, you're a brand new agent. Hopefully I might be able to negotiate like a 70-30 split, on your stuff. We'll just have to wait and see what I can negotiate, knowing darn well that he was on like a 95.5. I came to Keller Williams and they said, everybody is on a 70-30, but you're capped at 18,000. And whether you're the new guy or you're the Jimmy Rex at the time or the Dean Crandall, the principal broker, or even literally the owner of the company, your cap is equal. They said that creates a culture of there's no special deals. Everybody's special, but nobody's extra special, right? So there's no special deals. And I thought, oh, that means I am just as valuable in the monetary eyes of the brokerage as a new agent as the most experienced, top producing agent in the entire company, because we pay the exact same amount to the brokerage. We're equal. And that had a light bulb go on with me. And then, of course, the final thing was just the fact that Keller Williams essentially had this philosophy that they are a training and consulting company disguised as a real estate company. At the end of the day, like KW's value proposition is this. And so I joined the broker and I said, okay, I just took the test and you guys might relate to this. You take the real estate classes, you take the test only to realize you don't know jack about the business. Am I right? Kim, what are you learning about in the real estate classes right now? The legal stuff, right? You learn the law, you learn about discrimination, you learn about kind of the history on why we do the things we do and the laws we have. But at the end of the day, it doesn't teach you anything on how to run a real estate business. And Ignite is the first class I took that tried to answer that question of how do you run a real estate business. And Shane, you're not the first one here that's come in and said, hey, I've been a new construction agent for quite a while. I built a great business there, but that is a different business model than the resale business. And so that's what I kind of want to dive into, and what the class dives into is how do you create a diverse real estate business the way you want to build it. And that's kind of the fun thing too, is as I got into real estate, I realized real quick that one of the neatest things about a career in real estate is you get to dictate what kind of business it is. There are so many niches that you can focus on in this business. And so, and they can all be good, they can all be bad. It really is up to you. So when I hear people like Andrea say, well, I'm an introvert, I don't want to go be the big door knocking powerhouse, because we've got guys in this office that have bloody knuckles because they're door-to-door guys like Shoney that just go and pound doors, and that's the business that they want to do. And I have other people that say, no, that sounds like hell. There's no way I'm going to go knock on doors. I would rather just chill in an open house, have a little more passive approach of having people approach me. And so I'm going to build an open house business. And you've got guys like Bart Anthony that have multiple times made more than $1 million a year in this career. And he is an open house king. His early days, he did an open house 2-3 times a week because he did not want to knock doors. He liked sitting in open houses, having awesome branding and letting people walk into him. And he closed people. He was really good, and he built an open house business. And then of course you've got lots of realtors that have specialized in new construction, said, hey, I just want to have 2 or 3 awesome relationships with builders and sell their product, and that's it. I don't want to have to call my friends and family. I don't want to have to call strangers or door knock. I just want to do that. And they've built great businesses that way. You guys will have to figure that out. And that's what's cool, is Keller Williams isn't going to tell you, this is the way, you have to do it this way. It really is, it should be an opportunity for you to kind of go figure that out. That all being said, yeah, go ahead, Kim.
I was just with Andrea's, with your personality. A little bit more interesting. Before I was your play, I was managing Bassett Furniture and South Lake Forum. And I hired a new gal on kind of the close to her right now. I hired her about 5 months ago, maybe 6 months. Anyway, I don't know what it was. She was a classy gal, but she was very quiet. She was very introverted. And I took a chance on her. I just thought, what, I feel like she's going to make this happen. And I didn't even know why I felt that way. I just kind of went off my feelings, and super introverted. But she's a listener. And I feel like this plays into anything because she's a listener. We've had a model of, connecting with the customer, being able to, so there was a model of connecting with the customer, being able to discover, find out what it is that they're looking for and with the design of their home. And then starting to, figure out exactly what it is that they're looking for, really, and so she's taking note, mental note, she's jotting things down, and then she moved right into just gathering everything, right? Like that's the same thing that you're doing with real estate as well. And so gathering, and then figuring out exactly what it is that they want. So when you say open house, and maybe it's something that you do something like that. People are coming to you as long as you're doing the connection and the discovery and then the close, right? Like being able to actually find exactly what it is that they want and then closing your deal. And she has been more successful quicker than anybody else that I saw. And so I don't know if that just can give you a little bit of a, boost there, but like you said, you don't have to be that person that's out like knocking, as long as you find something that's going to bring them to you, though.
Well, play to your strengths is exactly what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So
It's
you want this back?
yeah, we can pass it around. Yeah, I mean, I learned very quickly that I didn't want to go door knock. In fact, when in 2007, when the market got flipped upside down, the realtors that were committed and wanted to stick it out immediately shifted to chasing foreclosures, chasing, well, we call them notice of defaults, NODs, right? And so I was surrounded by a bunch of guys that said, hey, we're gonna go knock on these doors of people that are missing their payments. I did that one time and I thought I was gonna get murdered. You knock on a door and say, hey, it looks like according to the county records, you're missing your payments. I'm here to provide some solutions. I am lucky I didn't get shot in the face because a lot of people said, how in the world do you know about my private life? Even though it's public information, that is a very uncomfortable. So yeah, I did it one time, knocked on 3 or 4 doors, and I was done with that business. And I realized real quick, I wanted to be a sphere of influence guy. I wanted just to network with my friends, network with my family, and find my deals that way. And here 16 years later, that's still the core of my business, is focusing on sphere of influence. And maybe this is a good segue to talk about some of the tools at KW. I'm going to try to put this in the middle. This first chapter of Ignite wants to make sure that you guys are crystal clear on the resources here at KW. And there's a ton. There's a ton online. There's a ton of people. You can kind of see like there's a lot for us to talk about. But this is a good topic to segue into what I would recommend. This is the first thing I want you guys to write down, and that is the first tool that I want you all to have is what's called a GPS. In Keller Williams, we talk about having every single realtor should start by having what's called a GPS. It's a one-page business plan for your business. And the GPS stands for goals, priorities, and strategies. And just like GPS in your car, it can kind of be the wayfinder or the guide on how you want to run your business for the year. And it still shocks me how many agents have been in the business a long time here at KW. And I say, hey, what's your GPS for this year? And they'll say, wait, the what? And so I want you guys to learn this language and to have one. And so a GPS, I want to do an example one, and hopefully you Zoomers, the owl can see the screen as well, because I do want you guys to at least leave this class with a couple of tools. And this is the first one I want you guys to have. Stuart, remind me your name one more time. Christian, can we pick on you? Can we do a quick GPS example? So a GPS would say, okay, what's your, first of all, what is your one goal for this year? How much money do you want to make? Have you done this exercise before?
My goal is to like this.
10 closings. Okay, and that's the first point. Most people will either have a unit count goal or an income count goal, but the income is just going to economic model itself and translate into a unit goal, right? So Christian just said 10 deals. That's his one thing. That is his goal. That's the G, right? So now the GPS would say, okay, what are at least 3 priorities on where to source and find these 10 deals? So Christian, what in your mind is the main source of business you want to find these 10 deals? What do you want to focus on to find those 10 deals in terms of a lead source?
Well, I'm starting with ex-coworkers in family and friends.
Okay, so you guys just, if you didn't hear, he said coworkers. He's in the restaurant business for years and years. And so, by the way, Keller Williams has so many acronyms. So you guys are going to get like, every business does, right? But we have so many in this business. So SOI. SOI means what, Andrea? Sphere of influence. So Christian said past worker, co-workers, friends, family. SOI, sphere of influence, is going to be his first priority. Do you have a second priority? Not right now, which is okay. Shane, do you have any other second priorities or third priorities on your sources of business that you intend to go chase over the next 12 months?
Mine is my SOI and then my past client list.
Okay.
And then developing new people on social media.
Social media. Okay. And so this is a good little example. So one thing that I do a little differently than some is sometimes I even go through and put a number, on SOI, I want to have, 6 of my deals, 6 of the 10 come from SOI, maybe 2 from past clients, and I want to meet 2 new people over social media. So those are kind of my goals that roll up to get my 10 deals. So this is the P, right? Those are my 3 priorities of my business. The S is strategies. So the S, we might say, okay, and usually there's a good 3, 4, even 5 strategies. So then we might say, okay, Christian, you want to get 6 deals from your SOI. What does that look like? What activities do you want to focus on to achieve, to find these 6 people?
Well, I already started by talking to friends that are looking into investing. So I'm also talking to friends if they know anybody that wants to sell or buy.
Okay, so you're making phone calls. I put quarterly because that's kind of a general consensus that you'll find in real estate is some sort of every 90 days you're having a conversation with. So you're making phone calls. What else?
Right now, that's what I'm doing because
Yeah, for sure. So this is a good time too to talk about most people, when you come to Keller Williams, you'll read the Red Book, the Red Bible, whatever you want to call it. You're in the middle of it. So in the middle of the MREA, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, this is, gosh, it's probably like a 20-year-old book at this point. I think it was 2003 or 2004 when it was written. But Gary Keller and Jay Papasan essentially went out and interviewed all these top agents and said, okay, we don't want to recreate the wheel. What is the wheel? What are the models? And they came up and said, every real estate business should have 4 models. And this book travels through each of the 4 models. One's the economic model, the lead gen model, the organizational model when you start to hire assistants and hire partners and all that. But one of the models, the lead generation model, they talk about in the book, it says a 33 touch. Now, when he's on stage talking, he calls it a 36 touch. I don't care what you call it, but essentially it's saying effectively touching people at least 3 to 4 times every month in some way, reminding them that you are the guy, the gal that is the real estate agent of choice. And so I would put in here a 36 touch, and that would be a combination of phone calls, emails, text messages, social media touches. Events is a big one that I enjoy doing. I try to do at least 3, 4 events every single year. We've got a pumpkin patch in the fall. We've got Easter egg hunt, and it's just a way for me to call. There's a touch, text, there's a touch, and invite them to the event to come and hang out. And then I can get a face-to-face touch. Yeah, Andrea.
So I was curious, so if you're starting out, you don't have to. And I know you should make I think it's 4 calls a year, 1 a quarter.
Mhm.
And then, what else are you doing? So they have the newsletter here, I know that. Sending out, market updates,
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because events are expensive, right? And so one of the most important principles that I would pass on to you guys is lead with revenue. What it kills me when people come into this real estate business and think, oh, well, like any business, I've got to spend $100,000 my first year to build this big business. And it's like, no, one of the most amazing things about being a realtor is your licensing, a couple $1,000 to become a realtor. This office charges you only a couple $100 to join the office. It's just not very expensive to get in. And you can continue to run a lean and mean business, and you shouldn't have to incur a lot of expenses. You're paying $55 a month here at KW for that tech package. That tech package has Command. Command is a database that's going to organize your sphere of influence, organize your contacts, but Command also has a marketing suite, and that's what you're talking about. So I would recommend your first year, if you say, boy, I am just tight on money, I would argue that you could effectively deliver a 36 touch plan with no more money than the $55 you're paying KW for that tech suite. And that would be in the form of phone calls, that's free. Text messages, that's free. Emails, that's free. Especially you can do really compelling, nice, classy emails through Command that has market data, it has strategies, tips to sell homes, things of value. But furthermore, you can do other things. For example, you can do small, I call them micro events, small events here at KW for free. I want everyone to hear this, especially you Zoomers. If you're falling asleep on Zoom, I can't see you, so I don't know what you're doing. But know that when we built this building 5 years ago, we were very adamant that we wanted, because it's a training company, right? KW is a training company. We wanted there to be not just one, but 2 training rooms. We're in the small training room right now, but the entire basement of Keller Williams is free for KW agents to book and reserve for anything you want. So the American Fork Police Department, they do their Christmas party every year here in our basement because not the chief, but a lieutenant, I don't know, whatever's right below the chief, is an agent here at KW. And so he says, well, I want to rent the space for free every year. So we do it. So for you guys, I want you to understand, if you said, hey, I want to put on a funny example that I have for you is Meats and Magic. We had an agent in our office right before COVID said, I want to do a little micro event. I want to invite maybe 100, 150 of my friends and family here to KW. I'm going to do a barbecue out on the patio. So there's the meats. And he hired a magician for a couple $100 to come to a magic show. The corniest thing ever, but it was a huge hit. He packed the house. He had 100 and something people show up here for the barbecue. They did a magic show that was just had everyone laughing and having a good time. And at the end of the day, he said, it reconnected me with 100 different households, you know, because it was couples that came, 100 different households. It was a piece of value. It was obviously that this was a real estate sponsored event because it was at the Keller Williams building. It was me, the realtor, he sent out some text messages, some phone calls for the invites and just said, hey, I'm just sponsoring as a way to stay in touch with people and to have fun. I want to provide an opportunity for you to have a fun date night. And he did it here. And guess how much that event cost him? Under $500. He paid for meat, and I think the magician only charged him $250. So it was food and the magician, right? There's other agents that have done oftentimes, and this is right up your alley, Christian, they do investment seminars. And those are the best turnout. I've done years ago, but I would do first-time home buyer seminars. It was so hard to get people to show up to that. The only success I had on that was I said, hey, let's offer down payment assistance or down payment grant seminars. That got some free money, gets people to show up. And then I talked about Utah Housing. I talked about loan to own here in Provo. You know, Provo has that program. There's a few small programs. They're CDC, not the disease, but Community Development Corporation is Salt Lake. CDC has some free down payment. So I did a little seminar. I think I had 2 people show up. But I did a class that was investors. In fact, I just called it Investing 101, learn how to own, you know, I had some catchy, corny phrase or something, but we had like 40 people show up. We put it on Eventbrite as a public event. We promoted it on social media. We had like 40 people show up. Mostly were our SOI, but we had a few strangers that just came in off the street. It was right here. And how much did that cost? Nothing. Actually, I think I had
That was last year, right?
the what?
That was last year? Or was it before?
We've done it almost every year, but yeah, it was like last year, or the year before. Yeah, you probably did. A lot of agents do it here. I had the First Colony, Sheila, who you guys just met. I said, hey, will you guys provide drinks for my appointment? So they had like a box of drinks. So that didn't cost me any money because they sponsored the drinks. It was a free event. So I'm telling you, you guys, you really don't have to sink a lot of money. Lead with revenues. When you start to make money, again, crack open that red book and then you'll look at the budget model. And Gary Keller has studied all the real estate agents that are finding success, and he lays out a budget model. And he has said your marketing dollar should be no more than 10% of your GCI. What does GCI stand for? You got it. You got it. Good job, Andrew. Gross commission income. I told you guys, we're going over a lot of acronyms today, but GCI is your revenue, right? So when you're looking at any business, the restaurant business, whatever it is, you're going to look at revenue. In the real estate business, we talk about GCI, gross commission income. And the red book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, when you get into the budget model, it says, hey, ideally the best agents out there have got their marketing budget limited to just 10% of their commission, of their GCI. So if you're going to go make $100,000 a year, your marketing budget is only 10 grand. That's got to cover all things marketing, all things lead gen. And it's pretty small. And I'll be honest, as my business is right now, I am not under 10, I'm over 10. It's painful to it's not as much as you think it is. And it's so easy to want to default to spending money to generate your leads. Because remember, there's 2 ways to run a business. You can do marketing and you can passively get your leads, or you can be proactive, which is ultimately free, but it requires you getting out of your comfort zone and going and getting it. And it's just and then right now, when you're in a recession, you better believe we butchered our budget. I butchered my budget down quite a bit, and I've just got my butt back on the phones. Or got her butt on the phones too. Yeah. Hey, I'm still making plenty of calls though, just a little different. Yes. Sweet, I'll take it. I'll take it. Does this help?
Does, how long before you started Springfield? When you started as well?
I'm so glad you asked that question. So 22-year-old Clay, January 3rd, gets his license, 2007. The market was still hot at that time in Utah, even though like Vegas had started to crumble, Arizona started to crumble, a lot of the big metro areas like the New York and LA, they all started to show the signs. But everyone was saying, Utah's different, Utah's different. We won't follow the rest of the country. Utah's special, it's the promised land. You know, whatever you want to call it. And what happened in Utah? We tanked just like everybody else. And I've got news for everybody. And you probably already know this, but what did we hear last year when Phoenix, well, actually Phoenix was delayed, but when LA and New York and all the big metro areas started to see shifts, what did we hear last year at about June? We're different. Utah's special. We're the promised land. And I got the loudest voice I could. I said, shut up. We just appreciated second highest in the entire country, Idaho being number 1 at 38%, Utah being number 2 at 28%. What goes up must come down. And I was as loud as I could last summer saying, don't you dare be naive. Utah is not different. And I want everybody to hear that because the news, the rhetoric, it's BS. Utah is not different. And guess what? We have crashed just as much as everyone else, in fact, worse. Right now, we are down purchase price by about 13% on the Wasatch Front. Surprise, and Idaho, guess how much they're down? A lot more, because they went buku crazy during COVID on their pricing. And they're crashing just as hard. What goes up must come down. So first, like, we're not special. We might be delayed, our trends might be a little different, but no, we fell right in line with the rest of the country.
So are we still gonna be coming down or? Are we
You Christian asked the golden question. Okay, this is part of our lesson. I told you I'm not really good at following the slides, but we just skipped to chapter 2, know your market. I'm gonna erase this. I wanna talk about this because I think this is so vital for us to understand. Well, first, let's put a bow on this before we talk about market, how to translate the market. Obviously, we didn't go into this, but your homework assignment is to develop a GPS. And I want you to have a coach when you go through it. Set up an appointment with Hunter, with Molly, with Shoni, with everyone and say, look, I want to make $100,000 this year. Clay talked about this GPS. Will you just coach me through it? I want a plan because I promise you, if you have this written out, you'll never show up to the office at 8 a.m. and say, what am I doing today? It's just like a fire hose. Like there's just so much to do. What are my priorities? You'll always be able to come back and say, hold on. I know I want to do 10 deals. I want to get 6 from my SOI. I want to get 2 from past clients. I'm going to formulate some strategies on how to do that. Now the job is to take this, and I can't go backwards on this slide, but your goals should go onto your calendar. That's like one of the most important principles. Your calendar should reflect your goals, and you should absolutely use your calendar. In fact, in a perfect world, I would love to, without even opening my mouth, be able to go up to Shane and say, show me your calendar. And if he said, here's my calendar, I could look at his iPad and I could say, hey, Shane, based on your calendar, it looks like your goals are, you want to be ripped because I see a ton of gym time on here. You want to be, it looks like you want to have a lot of deals derived from your SOI because I can see you've time blocked time to make your quarterly calls. It looks like you've time blocked time to send out emails or text messages or whatever. I would want to be able to say, based on your calendar, I can get a pretty clear idea of what your goals are. Your calendar should reflect your goals. So this is one of those tools that once you have it all written out, you can now go manage your time. And it's even what Kim and I have worked on. Kim and I, one of our very first meetings when we got into business together, is I laid out the one sheet GPS on, hey, this is how I see your priorities being. Is this helpful?
Yes.
Awesome. That's your first homework assignment. Now let's talk about market. Well, I'll just erase this. I don't know whose stuff this is. Yeah.
So I was already thinking as you were teaching this, was thinking that it's awesome that you're actually teaching this class the way that you already laid things out for me. So if we're looking at somebody who's already successful in the business and you're teaching it from what you've personally done, it's just such a good model to, I mean, you know, like you already said, don't reinvent the wheel, you know, let's go, you follow the model, let them follow the model. And I love that you're teaching just already what you've laid out for me to say, this is what our goals are, you know, this is my funding, what is your one?
Yeah, well, and it's funny, like, it's not that I'm anything special. I get this directly out of the teachings I've had, and this is from the Red Book, to illustrate exactly what you're talking about. And again, I'm going to quote the Red Book a lot, because I found in my career, I was a 22-year-old, everything I owned could fit in one box and ski boots. I had one box and ski boots. I was a college kid. I had maybe like not even $1,500 in the bank account. When I took the licensing to get my real estate license, I put it on a credit card. When I got into the business in that January of 2007, I had one successful closing right in my first quarter because I was making my calls, and I had a college roommate that needed to sell his townhome because he decided to join the military and go fight in Afghanistan. And so I had that sell, and then I had nothing until 6 months later when stuff started to pick up. I had a mother that at dinner time, she took me out to dinner after 6 months, Red Lobster down here by Vasa. And my mom looked me in the eye and had the audacity to say, hey, Clay, it's been 6 months. You haven't really made any money. Are you ready to go get a real job now? It broke my heart. I said, Mom, I'm like committed to this, but I put a chip on my shoulder. And I made a goal at that point I went home that day and I said, you know what, my next year in 2008, I'm going to make more money than my dad, just to stick it to my mom for making that comment. And I did. And what a blessing it's been. I stuck to the book. I stuck to what I learned here at Ignite. I stuck to the models because I'm not a creative person. I'm a B student. I'm ambitious, but I'm not anything talent, I'm not any special talent, but I stuck to the models and I did it. That second year in real estate, I made more money than my dad. And I've made a ton of money in this career. And I attribute a lot of my own success to the principles I learned from Gary Keller. Like, to be completely honest, the guy is a wizard. He's got a servant's heart, a teacher's heart, whatever you want to call it. He's always teaching. That's why last week I went down to family reunion. I like learning from. So you're going to hear me reference like a lot on the Red Book. And again, everybody should read the Red Book. It goes over the 4 models of this business. But one of the things he talks about early on in the early chapters, and you may remember this, is he said, look, there's 2 ways to go build your business. The incorrect way is when you try to build a business based on creativity, and then you put the models on top, opposed to building a business that's founded on models with creativity sprinkled on top. And this might sound obvious, but do you know how many realtors come in this door and say, I'll give you a real life example. I recruited this gal. She lives in Vineyard. Her name's Winnie. And Winnie is just a dynamic person. And she came in and she said, I'm going to revolutionize the real estate business because every single person that buys with me, I'm going to send them to Disneyland. And I'm going to become the Disneyland realtor. And that's my entire value proposition. You buy a house with me or sell a house with me, you get a free trip to Disneyland. And that was her entire model. And so she came in thinking, like, I've got this creative thing, I don't like promotion, and that's gonna be my thing. And her branding was, I'm Disney, I am the Disney realtor, and all of that. How well do you think her business went?
How much was the Disney trip?
Right, and so suffice it to say, I'm saying we used to have a realtor here. She's out of the business. She didn't last 1 year. I don't know if she even had a closing. It was really kind of one of those like, okay, it's a promotional piece, but again, lead with revenue, 10%. You can't send people to Disneyland on 10% unless you're selling $1 million homes. Like, maybe that works, but at the end of the day, understanding that these models really should be the foundation, but then you can get creative on top. For example, a model of, hey, I've got to have 200 contacts in my database to generate 33 closings is a proven mathematical equation. So where are you going to get 200 people? That's the creative part. I'm focused on my SOI. I'm going to focus on some past clients, or I'm going to get on social media. But the model of I need X amount of contacts to generate X amount of appointments to generate X amount of deals is this business. You can't get around that model. If you don't have clients, you're not making money. And if you're not willing to go get clients, you're in the wrong business. Yeah. Yes, it's let KW in 99 and the L and KW are capitalized. Where's our little sign? Oh, right here. Or use this one. Here's the free guest one. Yeah. Yeah, but write this down because, yeah, let KW in your soul. But it's let KW in 99. L and K and W are capitalized. Yep. You are welcome. So Kim, this was a long answer to validate your comment. Creativity on top of models. Okay. Zoomers, I need an aha. You guys are sleeping.
I'm just loving it, Clay. You're doing a great job. It's so
Oh,
amazing.
good.
And I love that I know you say you don't like to follow the slides, but you know, you do a very step by step, and I really appreciate that. It's great.
Oh, that's good. Can you guys see, is the owl, oh, I've got my drink right in a way. Is the owl picking up when I write on the whiteboard?
I can't see the whiteboard at all.
Oh, shoot. Well, you just missed a great lesson on creativity and models. I'll try to move this a little bit. Maybe this will catch the whiteboard. How about now?
Still too far away to actually see it, but that's okay because I do understand the concept, and I have read the MREA book, so it's all good.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm skipping ahead on the slides. This goes over the 6 personal perspectives, which are amazing, but we are not going to go through them today. I want to talk about, let's see if there's even a slide in it. I don't know if we're going to get to it, but I do want to talk about the market. Christian had asked about it, and I think there's a good conversation to be had here. Okay, I'm going to give you one of my favorite scripts that I use with all my clients as the opening for this, and that is, I'll pick on another Zoomer. If this will even show me. Don't worry, you don't have to respond. But Jessica, I'm your realtor, and I just wanted to let you know that it is my job as your realtor to translate the market in a way that educates you to make great real estate decisions. Again, it's my job to help translate the market in a way that will allow you to make great real estate decisions. That's important to understand as a realtor, that is your job. So how do you translate markets? Because markets change and there's so many different dynamics to understand. You guys have all seen this graph many times. This is,
Every decade, every 10 years.
yep, exactly. So this is the graph that shows the cyclical nature of markets. Now this could represent home value, but it could also represent attrition rate, which means number of sales. It could also represent interest rates to a degree. It could reflect a lot of things, but for the sake of this conversation, we'll just pretend that this is representing value and just number of sales, rate of sale. How about that? Rate of sale, right? So where are we at today on this line? You tell me when to stop. Right here? Jessica, do you agree? I just like picking on Zoomers because you know they're not paying attention.
I can't see it.
Dang it, you guys really can't see it. How close do I have to get this?
It's It's really true. And the light reflects on it, Clay. It's not that we don't want to see it. It's just
How about
that
now?
that's worse.
Ah, shoot. All right, well, can you see my hand motion? Markets go up and down.
Yep.
So we just stopped the line. So we've got on here that our market is going down. And so we've got to translate this, right? So how would you translate this to a seller or a buyer when they ask the question, hey, Shane, should I sell my house right now? Or hey, Shane, should I buy a house right now? How would you answer that question? And I don't care if you're brand new or you're a veteran, you darn well better be able to consult people through that conversation, because as you're making your dials and your quarterly calls, this is the question you want your clients to ask. Because if they say, well, actually, I am thinking about making a real estate change, but I'm scared. Are people scared right now? Definitely. Remember, when the market's going up, call this 18 months ago, and Shane remembers this, every buyer, every seller had what? FOMO. What does FOMO stand for? Fear of missing out. And so I had people call me and said, make an offer on this. I said, why? Well, because everybody's doing it. And I want to be like everybody. And every single person was a buyer. Literally everybody. Everybody wanted to buy something if they could. And also the people that already owned real estate had so much equity to say, well, I'll just go get a HELOC and I'll buy another one. And I made a ton of money. I made more money in 2021 than I've ever made my entire career. It was just too easy. Everybody was buyer. And how many conversations did I have to have with those people? Very little. Yep, this is cool. Everybody's doing it. Sign here. I'll see you at the closing table. Go get your loan done. Do what I say. Don't ask any questions. And their response was a nod and an okay, I'll go do it. But then things started to shift, right? When did they shift? What was the peak? Not the beginning. No, the beginning was hot, hot, hot. Quarter one last year, we had 10% appreciation. This is totally the Clay Winder peak. But Shane, I'm looking at you because I was in a meeting with Drew Dietrich, the former, I don't know what he was at Edge, vice president. He was up there, and VP of sales. And I was in a meeting with Drew when the shift all happened. I said, Drew, when was the last time Edge Homes made a price increase on their product? And he said, oh, I'll never forget it. It was April 15th. I remember sitting in my office and I did a price increase and everything was good. And he said, and this was like May that he told me this. And he said, and ever since then, we've done nothing but price decreases. So according to him and Edge Homes, the last increase they did was April 15th. I think that's pretty symbolic, the peak of the market. So the peak happens, and then the Fed says what?
Interest rate.
First of all, let's take it back. Let's take a step back because I want everyone to understand this principle. Why does the Fed exist? Why did Alexander Hamilton create the Federal Reserve? Like, what is their goal, their mission? And Zoomers, you can pipe in too. What is the goal of the United States Federal Reserve?
To keep the economy stable.
And what is the economy? Just the overall economy? Because they're not doing a very good job when they increase rates. Say it louder. Yeah, so you're both right. Andrew just added, it's to keep the US dollar stable. The Fed's job is to protect the value of the US dollar. And guess what? They are dang good at it. And that's why the world currency, in an essence, is the US dollar. They have mastered it. And so as much as we want to say, oh, that dang Fed, what are they thinking increasing the rates? They're going to send us into a recession. You know what Jerome Powell says? He says, damn straight, I'm going to send you into a recession because my job is to protect the US dollar. And what's the number one enemy of the US dollar? Inflation. Hey, there could be a lot of truth to that because who holds all of our debt? Yeah, that's a whole other topic. But I think this is important as realtors to understand that when inflation got out of control, and when we said, hey, the cost of gas is going through the roof, the cost of bread, I mean, heck, I spent $6 on eggs last night. These things are painful, these things are real, and all that does is make the dollars in my account worth less. And Jerome Powell and the Fed says that's our number one enemy. We have to stop that. So how do you stop inflation? You have to stop spending. And so the Fed sits around their little table and says, how do we stop Shane from spending money? How do we stop Tim from spending money on her nails, you know, or her eggs or whatever. You know, how do you stop people from spending? Well, they only have one lever, but it's a dang good lever, and that is we can make it more expensive to borrow money because they have that power. That's how the Federal Reserve was created. Is they told all the banks, if you guys want federally back insured loans, you have to tie your interest rate to our interest rate, and we will dictate that. And so immediately back in, gosh, what was it? May was the first trickle up. June, and then July was the big one. The full 1% increase was July. The Fed just said, until inflation gets down, we're going to keep creeping it up. They've done what, half a dozen increases right now to bring it up. Inflation is still in the 6s, but it is trending down. And so the Fed has said, well, we are going to create a recession. When I was in 2007, 2008, we hit a recession, but what drove that recession?
Inflated prices on real estate.
It was inflated kind of everything. And so a lot of businesses like Lehman Brothers, I'll never forget that day. If you guys remember, that was like August of 2007. The big insurance companies and the big banks simply said, we're just not making money. And they did one of the biggest layoffs. They went out of business. And it was like 10,000 people around the world lost their job. And that trickled. And even right here in Utah, it was the layoffs. It was all of a sudden, a ton of people were losing their jobs. And that's what led to that recession, is people just lost their jobs. And so that was a very natural, terrible recession that was out of control. There was no control. The difference right now, and this is literally the script I use with a lot of my clients, is I said, yes, we're in a recession right now, but we're in a man-made recession. And better said, we are in a Fed-made recession. And some people won't call it a recession because they're not losing their jobs. They still have their jobs. But the definition of a recession is 2 quarters of negative GDP in a row. We had that last year. This quarter, it looks like we'll actually have growth. So maybe it's not technically a recession. But in terms of real estate, we are in a Fed-made recession. Fed increased rates. They don't want us buying houses because buying houses is the single most important cause of economy. You buy a house, it usually means the carpet guy gets business, the furniture company gets business, the decor, the food, the appliances, it just triggers all of, so much of the economy that a home sale and a home buy is usually the single biggest cause to stimulate economies. That's why when we're in a recession, which we were again back in the day, do you know how many government programs were thrown? First, it was $7,500 for first-time home buyers. Then they bumped it to $8,000 for first-time home buyers. They were doing all kinds of stuff in 2008. That's why I put on classes that were, hey, first-time home buyers, come to my class. I'll teach you how to get free money. Because at that time, Obama was throwing a lot of money to stimulate the economy, and they do it. Will we see that again? Probably. We could. If home sales really get so sluggish and then inflation gets down, they'll either use the rate to stimulate or they will literally throw money at us and say, hey, and it's usually first-time home buyers, and say, hey, first-time home buyers, here's free money. They rarely incentivize us investors. But rates, I'll tell you what, there's no bigger incentive for an investor than a good rate, because that makes our numbers work. So I think this is an important conversation to translate and say, okay, we know we're in a free fall. We know interest rates are high because the Fed wants them high. So let's bring this conversation back. How do you respond to your client when they ask, well, shoot, Christian, is now a good time to buy a house or sell a house or not? What should I do? How would you consult that conversation? Who wants to have a stab at it? And Zoomers, you can speak up too.
To me, if you're a first-time home buyer, anytime is a good time to buy it.
Why?
Because that's the first investment you're going to do.
Hey, Zoomers, can you hear Christian? Because this is a wonderful response.
I can hear him.
Okay, thank you. Good. So yeah, he said first-time home buyer, anytime is usually a good time to buy. So why is that?
Because when you're a first-time home buyer, usually there's government programs, and also I believe you can also do FHA if it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a little more help to be able to afford to qualify for the house.
Yeah. So, well, you said a really smart thing, and that is, it's a long-term investment. And the answer to most of the question when somebody says, should I buy a house? I imagine this graph in my mind. And usually the first question, they're not going to get a yes or no out of my mouth until I ask a series of questions. The first question I'm going to ask is, well, how long do you intend to own this home for?
That's a good
For
word.
example, if they say, well, I'm a short-term flipper. I'm flipping houses right now. And they say, I don't want to own this home longer for 3 months. Is it a good time to be flipping houses right now?
Nope.
It's a dangerous time. Now, are people still flipping houses?
Yes.
Yes, because they're getting such deep discounts that they're hoping to still catch this curve. But is it the scariest time ever? Yeah, because home values are going down. But if a first-time home buyer says, well, I'm just buying a house because I'm tired of renting and I do want my standard of living to be better. I want the pride of homeownership, which is such a real thing. And don't ever forget that. There is a quality of life that comes from the American dream of I own this. I can burn it to the ground if I want to. I can fix it up. I can have my chickens. I can do whatever.
And also you stop throwing money away.
Exactly. I'm building equity. I'm getting tax deductions. There's all the investment points. There is pride in home ownership. I had a conversation last week, a buyer consultation with young 20-something-year-old newlywed couple at BYU that said, hey, we want to get out of renting and owning. I said, well, what are you paying in rent? They said $800 for this basement apartment. And I said, the least expensive property in all of Utah County is still going to cost you about $1,800 a month. Are you prepared to increase your monthly payment by $1,000 just to have that pride of ownership? And guess what they said? Yeah, we are. Because we understand the value of home ownership in terms of building equity, getting tax deductions, and the sense of pride of ownership. And they said, we want to have a kid, we want to have family, we don't want to rent. Yeah, we're in a good deal, but we want to move up. And we might not be married to that rate forever, and we have a long-term perspective. So my first question is, if you have a long-term horizon, you will capture the upswing. And this bottom, it could be a matter of a few months away, could be a matter of a few years away. How do we predict bottom?
When you start to see the prices go up again, maybe.
Right, yeah, and at that point, you'll know it. But if you want to predict the bottom, there is a way in this market because Jerome Powell already told us.
Oh,
Jerome Powell said, I will decrease rates, or I will look at decreasing rates when inflation is back to 2%.
2%. Okay.
2%. When inflation's at 2%, they'll start talking about it. So when people are like, oh, do you have a crystal ball, Clay? No, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you that inflation, it was at 10 almost, right? We got to 9, we got to 8. Inflation rates come out, today, actually. We should know what, is March 1st? Maybe not today, it might be next week. It's usually a week later, but we'll find out. What was February? If February was going down, I think it was 6 point something in January. If we continue to go down, Jerome Powell has already said, we get it all the way under control, which control is 2 and 3%. It's always around 3%. We get down to 2%, most likely we'll see a softening of rates. It's not guaranteed, but that's literally what he said when he was giving his speech. Almost every time he gives a speech, he says that the goal is 2. So because this is man-made, it can be man-fixed too, and that man is named Jerome.
I always wanted to articulate the relationship between drop in home prices and then interest rates, right? Because everybody's worried about interest rates. But I've seen some of these ones drop $30,000. How would you articulate that?
Such a good question. For you guys on Zoom that didn't hear, Andrea just asked pretty much the golden question that is in every buyer's mind. And you got to explain it to a seller when they say, why, let's talk to a seller, for example, why does an interest rate mean you're going to have to butcher your price, Mrs. Seller? And I'll give you an example. I had my good high school friend's dad called me last fall when all of this was really going down in this section right here. It was about October of last year. He called me and said, hey, my mother just passed away. This is the home I grew up in. It's an estate sale. We've got this home. It's in Taylorsville. He said, I just fixed it all up. It's looking good. I want to go on the market. And just imagine Taylorsville, your classic split entry with a little detached 2-car garage. Nothing special, but it was at least fixed up and looking good. And he said, I really have no idea on what the price is. Can you tell me what it is? So I did a price analysis, and I came in with a bunch of comparables. And I said, look, you've got a bunch of comparables from earlier this summer that were priced clear up here. But I'm telling you right now that you're the best, and the prices were about 470 is what the pricing came in. But I came in and I said, look, your probably best case scenario is going to be right around 430 or 440. And he said, well, why can't I get 470 like the comparables? And I said, I'm going to break your heart with this, but that is because of what Andre asked, and that is because of the monthly payment. I said, when these homes sold, all the buyers that bought this home were probably around the 4% interest rate. Today, your rate is over 6%, because we hit 6%, that big bump in July. It's about August, we went over 6%, which today we're at what? Who knows today's interest rate? You can quote the billboard, I don't care.
It's
Quote the guys on the billboards are 6.5.
6.5.
I call that billboard rate, which is going to be kind of your best case scenario, because the billboards always put kind of the best. You can get a little better. I bet Sheila could probably quote a tiny bit better or something, but ultimately you're 6.5 today. We're just stuck in the sixes. We've been here for months. So I looked at my seller and I said, look, you're going to take a discount because I want you to imagine this. The demographic of who's going to buy this split entry, or it wasn't split entry, but multi-level home in Taylorsville is probably a first-time home buyer, young couple, maybe some singles, but this is going to be a first home. You're at $430,000. Do you understand what their monthly payment will be? And he said, I have no idea. I said, well, what would you pay for this house? Or what were you just renting to your kids? My high school buddy, you were just renting. He said, oh, I was renting this house to him for $1,600. Sounds about right. Little home, Taylorsville, $1,600, seems reasonable. And I pulled out my mortgage calculator. I said, at today's rate, somebody's probably going to do an FHA loan, which how much down payment is an FHA loan? 3.5%. Yep, thank you. And a conventional loan is 5%. Yep. So I said, let's even do best case scenario. I find a first time home buyer that saved their pennies. They've got their $20-something thousand saved up. They're going to put 5% down. I plugged in 5% on a mortgage calculator of $430,000. And guess what monthly payment it kicked out? At 6.5%. I added the taxes, insurance. It was $3,500. It's like 34 and some change.
35.
So I said, Jim, I said, you were just renting this like a few months ago to your kids for $1,600 a month. I have to now go find a buyer that's willing to pay $3,500 a month to buy this house. Do you think I can do it? And he says, we're screwed. And I said, I don't think we're screwed, but we're darn near close to being screwed. But I said, there's good news. We still have an overabundance of households. Our migration to Utah is good. Our birth rate is top in the nation. Because of COVID, business models have changed. So we're not shipping out our college grads nearly as much to other states. They're staying here. They're getting Zoom jobs. I'm like, we still have growth. But yes, I have to go find a buyer that's willing to pay $3,500 a month to buy your home. That's the relationship with interest rates. So when people say, how does interest rates lower prices? Monthly payment, monthly payment, monthly payment. As humans, generally speaking, we all make decisions based off the monthly payment because we're Americans and we love our loans and we have mastered the art of thinking in terms of monthly payment instead of overall.
Yeah.
Right? You have a question on Zoom?
No, I was just acknowledging. Sorry, I forgot it wasn't muted.
No, you're okay. Oh, I love acknowledgement from Zoom because Zoom is just so silent all the time. Sometimes I wonder if you guys just check out. So I hope this is useful. And so when I'm talking to this person, well, I guess we should just finish this. On monthly payment, there's only two ways to get to the affordability rate. You guys know what the affordability rate is. It's important to understand because deep down, we all understand this because this is what drives our decisions. The affordability rate is a calculation that says what is your income versus or let me rephrase this. What is your monthly payment for your house versus your total income per month? And so a lot of people will say, well, what advice would you give? How much of my monthly income should go toward my house payment? And what's a good answer for that? What would you guys say? What is yours personally?
33%.
33? Very specific, right? What's yours? 50% because you have a big, huge house? Right, but I bet if you do the calculation, you're going to be similar to Christian, probably in the 30 percentile. If you were listening to Dave Ramsey, the financial guru on the radio, Dave Ramsey says, don't you dare pass that 30%. I want you at 25%. 15? Hallelujah. Yeah, no, that's amazing. But here, I'll tell you what, the first time home buyer buying this Taylorsville home, $3,500 a month. How much of that? And it was, I sold the home, by the way, for $432,000. It was a single guy. His name was Travis. And his monthly payment, he did an FHA loan, 3.5. So his monthly payment was definitely that $3,500. And I just thought in my mind, I imagine, how much does that guy make? I mean, if I was a young 20-something-year-old guy, I certainly didn't make that. And I'm even thinking of my nephew who's in his, I'm like, I don't think he's making more than $5,000 a month, which is really good. But even at $5,000 a month, this is over 50% of his income. Now, most banks right now, they'll go as high as mid 40s. If Sheila was still here, she'd probably tell us that they might go as high as 48. I've heard 42% is kind of a rule. But could you imagine that first time home buyer saying, okay, I'm going to pay 50% of my income just on my house payment?
Because yesterday, the day before Monday, the guy that did the glass was saying that it's 45% total.
45% total. Yeah, because
That's
remember
like
too,
all
that
of
has to
your-
count the car loans too.
Exactly.
It's all of your debt. So if they have a car loan, they've got to factor in the car loan too. If they have $300-$400 on a car payment. And so I did find a buyer for it, and it did sell for $432, which in this market, homes are still selling. But that is the conversation. And I have to have that with the sellers, and I have to have that with the buyers constantly. And that's why, and here's the punchline to the whole conversation is on affordability rate. There's only two ways to get there to change the monthly payment: price and interest rate, right? That's it. Or more down payment, I guess you could argue. But that's pretty much fixed. And so essentially prices have been coming down because rates are high. The minute rates go down, prices will either level off or they'll start going up again. And the reason we had 10 years of prices just hiking up is because interest rates were kept so low. And when COVID hit, everyone thought the world was going to stop. I thought the world was going to stop. I immediately cut my budget. I thought, I'm out of a job for the next year. No one's going to buy a house. Like this pandemic. In fact, just before the pandemic hit, I was giving a speech in the room next door in front of Keller Williams. And I said, look, guys, like there's definitely a shift coming. We've had 10 years of growth. But that being said, everything's so stable, everything's so strong. I said, the only thing that's going to stop this train is a natural disaster, a terrorist attack, or a pandemic. I really did say that. And a month later, the pandemic hit, and I thought, I predicted it. The shift is here. Called my wife. I said, we got to cut the budget. We're unsubscribing from Netflix. I'm going to make no money this year. Like no one's going to buy a house or sell a house. Like we're just hunkered down. Like this is terrible. It was right when Rudy Gobert, because he was like March 11th, right? Rudy Gobert got COVID, and that was like the day that everyone rushed Costco here in Utah to get their toilet paper. Hey, we all did it. We all panicked, right? And I thought, this isn't going to happen. And so the Fed kind of thought that too. And so instead of just like staying true to the numbers, the Fed lowered their rate, got really low. And then all of a sudden, everyone sitting at home said, well, shoot, if I'm going to sit here at home and work from home and live in my home, I need more space, or I need to pimp my pad was the phrase that came out. And next thing we know, instead of me not having any business, every person on my phone was calling me saying, I want to go buy a house. It was nuts. And we all know the history lesson of it went up, and rates and the Fed took too long to respond. They kept rate. I mean, rates were like, I got an investment property at 2.75. It was nuts. I shouldn't have got that. It should have been 3. It should have been 4.75. Anyway, so we have to watch the teeter-totter of price and interest rate, because the affordability rate is what drives this whole thing. So this bottom will be when it's affordable. And so this bottom will either be when prices get low enough or when rates get low enough. Now, there's an argument to be made that certain segments of the market are at the bottom. You know what I'm talking about. Looking at you, Mr. New Construction, Mr. Edge New Construction. It's my belief, and you guys can take this for what it's worth. But I think the numbers will validate this in the next few weeks. I believe that they will determine that the new construction condo market has hit bottom. In the last 3 weeks, I've been in multiple offer situations. Edge is the leading condo builder. Edge brought their prices down in Lehigh. You guys can see this to $315. When the condos have all been $350 for the last little while. You may have remembered this, but in just that last week in January, Everything was stagnant. Edge had like 100 and something condos without contracts. And they kind of panicked, I think, because all of a sudden we got an email that said, hey, Edge they're not going to officially put this on their website, but they will consider offers at 315. That trickled out to all of us agents who said, 315, let me plug that into the calculator. And guess what? At 315, even at 6.5 or 7 for the investors, yeah, it's still a super high payment, but the numbers all of a sudden started to be acceptable. And what happened? Edge sold all 100 condos in 2 weeks.
Wow.
I sold 2 of them.
It's Sumitomo, their owner, they have a different way of looking.
Isn't it fascinating? One of these, I got in a multiple offers top 4 unit in Timp Point, and we ended up contracting for 328. And they're buying it. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, could you repeat what the guy said in the audience?
Oh, what did you say?
It's just, Edge is owned primarily by a Japanese company. They're 400 years old, Sumitomo, and they just have a different way of, they have a more long-term way of looking at things.
Yes, yeah, he's just saying the Japanese money behind Edge is, I almost want to use the word nimble. Like the fact that they were like, sure, go from 350 down to 315 on 100 properties. What's 100 times 40 grand? Like we're going to make what's that, 4 million?
But
No,
like 4 months before that, I was selling a condo in Vineyard and she bid 50-something grand above base price to win it.
yeah, I sold a condo in Vineyard for 375 and we closed in November. And so from November just here to beginning of February, because this was just a few weeks ago, it's like over $60,000 in drop. But guess what? Edge found the bottom because as of today, there's not one Edge available condo in Lehigh. You got to go out to Wildflower. So it's like, okay, did that segment find the bottom? Yes, they found it not because waiting for Jerome Powell to lower the interest rates, they found it by just butchering their price. And this is so important because as you guys are having the conversations with your sellers and your sellers have to ask, well, how do we determine value? Yes, we look at the comparables. That's going to lead the conversation. But if the comparables are back a few months and we know we're trending down, we have to have a little prediction of how do we get ahead of this thing and not just chase the market down, but how do we actually price it right? And it is going to be a conversation about the price of the home and that affordability rate.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In new construction, I know that it costs per agent. So me as not being part of that company, how do I get paid?
Buyer's agency.
Buyer pays.
Yep. Yep.
Make sure.
Yeah, remember almost every listing agreement, if it's put on the MLS, the sellers hire an agent as a listing agent and say, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars in commission.
Yeah.
The most common is 6%. And then that listing agent will turn around and say, hey, all you buyer's agents, if you represent a buyer effectively, bring them to us. First of all, procure it, but help with the paperwork, help with the title, the appraisal, the loan, just quarterback it and provide great services to the buyer. We will split that commission with you. We'll give you a portion of that commission. So the builders do the same thing. The builders would hire their agents and their agents would have a commission rate, but then the builders offer over the MLS and say, hey, all you buyer's agents, if you represent a buyer and procure it, then we will pay you that commission.
Yeah, Edge pays 3%.
Yeah, Edge, it was pretty powerful in the heat of the market when everybody was a buyer, everything would sell, even if the agent was asleep at the wheel. You had quite a few builders. I represented a builder and it was very painful. My builder said, I am done paying 3%. These buyer's agents aren't worth a damn. And he lowered it to 2%. One of the biggest national builders, Lennar Homes, came out and said, hey, we're going to butcher it down to 1%. Buyer's agents just aren't worth anything because everybody's a buyer. We just don't need you. We're just selling them directly. Edge Homes was very loud and clear. And I heard it from Steve Maddox himself in one of his meetings. He just said, look, we want to make a name for ourselves. We're going to stick at 3% because we know you guys we know the realtor community will have our back when it's not crazy. And guess what? It's not crazy right now. And I certainly remember I've got land in Salem right now that I'm developing and it's a builder's dream come true. I've had multiple builders approach me, Lennar being one of them. And what do you think we said to Lennar when they said, hey, we want to buy this. We're going to build a couple hundred townhomes on this land. And my partners are owners of Keller Williams Real Estate. What do you think we told Lennar? Go pound sand, because we remember what you did. And so you betcha. You betcha. And just said, hey, we just said, you guys aren't realtor friendly, which by the way, the market stinks right now. What do you think Lennar's paying? 3%. There's a lot of builders right now offering 4%. They've never valued buyers. You know, a good agent to guide a buyer through this painful process of figuring out the financing is the most valuable thing they can pay for. And maybe this is a good time to say, realtors, you have to be loan officers too. You can't, the days of just, hey, talk to the loan officer, figure out your loan, and then let's go shopping. It's not over. You need to be holding their hand and understand, what is your payment? What are you putting down? How much concessions do I need to negotiate from the seller? Am I going to ask the seller to not just cover your closing costs, but also pay for a rate buy down? What about a 2-1 buy down? Who knows what a 2-1 buy down is? Zoomers, what is a 2-1 buy down? You should understand this, because it's not that a lot of people are doing them right now, but trust me, every buyer is having a conversation with their loan officer about whether they should do a 2-1 buy down.
So
Yeah, it has to do with points, but I don't think I could explain it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. I want everyone to understand a 2-1 buy down is when a buyer asks the seller to prepay the first and second year a portion of interest. So the first year, so let's say rates today are 6.5%. They're saying, hey, seller, we want you to pay so that our first year, we have an effective payment at 4.5%. So that 2% is prepaid by the seller. And then the second year is at 5.5. And then the third year and beyond, it graduates to the 6.5. Now, the reason that it involves a seller is a buyer, they are not allowed to prepay it themselves. The only way this is legal is if the seller prepays, and there's a calculator to figure out how much money that is, but to prepay year 1 and year 2 of some of that interest. So it allows people to grow into their monthly payment. So the first year it might only be $2,000, second year it's $2,500, third year is $3,000. The hope, of course, from buyers is either A, interest rates go down and we just refinance before year 3 comes around, or B, they get a job, bonus, or they get an increase, whatever. They're just kicking the can down the road.
But you still have to qualify for this.
Bingo. You still have to qualify for the 6.5. Yep. And so that matters to the realtor critically, right? Because this is a huge concession. You might have to come in and say, hey, seller, well, actually, I'll tell you, back to the Taylorsville house I sold. That guy didn't do a 2-1 buy down, but he did ask the seller to pay $15,000 in concessions, probably about $6,000 of that just to cover the loan costs, and the rest of that to just straight up buy the rate down. Because you can also just buy the rate down, because I think at the end of the day, his rate wasn't in the 6s. I think he was like 5.9. Again, I don't know. I wasn't the buyer's agent, but he bought it down. And that can be permanent for the 30 years. But that's why you've got to ask, do I buy the rate down? Because it's very expensive to buy the rate down. Like $10,000, you're only going to get a quarter, 0.5% down. And so that is a mathematical equation of, if you buy the rate down, you better intend to have that loan. The last time I did this calculation for my buyers is if we bought the rate down, you would have to have the loan for 4 years to justify the savings for that 10 grand. Otherwise, you may as well just take it off the purchase price and just spend less on the house. But they looked at it and they're very conservative. They said, I don't think rates are going to come down. I think we need to buy the rate down and plan on having this home for the duration of ownership. What's the average ownership right now in Utah? How long do people own their homes?
8 years.
Yep, it's 5 to 7 years. My argument is going to be exactly what you just said, is with rates being high where they're at, I think we're probably going to see that trend tick up to 8 years. But that's why I know, even back to the original fundamentals of this class of calling your SOI, everybody I call, even the people that I just sold a house to last week, they're still going to be a client 7 years from now. And I've been in the business 16 years and I have cycled so many people through homes. My best client, Ashley Morrill, has bought 8 homes with me. You add a couple of divorces, a couple of marriages, and just a pretty savvy person. She buys and sells a lot of houses, about every other year with me.
So she's pretty much flipping, but
Yeah, she didn't even mean to. I mean, I've got investors that have done more, but just like a normal person. But yeah, she's bought and sold with me. Yeah, I think we're eight times. 8 times. Yeah. So these are certainly lifelong clients. But again, back to this, they might, we might have to play the refi game. Now, what did Gary Keller last week? Were you guys in team meeting on the panel? I think they quoted this, but Gary Keller stood on stage last week in front of, Gary Keller is considered one of the top most influential people. And again, the guy just studies the markets. He had all the data up and he said, I want you guys to hear me. He said, I don't think you'll ever see a 3% rate ever again in your life. And he said, frankly, I also don't think you'll ever see a 4% rate ever again in your life. If you guys remember the slide, if you look at the average of rates for 40 years, it is 6 or 7%. But if you look at just the last 15 years, I think is what he had, 5.5%. So we said, listen, like as much as you guys think 6% is so terrible, and I will say this, there's always the older people that will say, well, back in the 80s, we were at 18%, so quit your whining. And I'm going to rebuttal that and say, no, we are going to whine, because even though you were at 18% back in the 80s, your purchase price was so low that your affordability rate was not as bad as it is today. So yes, we can whine about 6.5%, and we can whine really loud because we have high prices and the high rates. Our affordability rate is the worst it's been in my lifetime right now. It is a hard argument to say home ownership is a good idea unless you have a very long perspective. That's why this is a very real conversation. It's my entire career, I've always been able to say it's cheaper to buy than to rent. It's cheaper to buy. Your monthly payment will always be less than a rent. I've been able to say that my entire life until last year. Rates went up, and guess what? Renting was cheaper.
So what other questions do you ask when they say, is it a good time to buy a home?
Okay, thank you for keeping me on point. Yeah, go down the rabbit trail. So again, let's answer. So first thing I'm gonna say is, right now a good time to buy. How long do you intend to be in that home? And what do you need out of this home? An investor conversation is a lot different than an occupying buyer, right? And so I'm gonna ask, how long do you intend to be in this home? Because if it's longer than 2 or 3 years, the answer is most likely yes. It is a good time to buy. And they're going to say, well, why? Because my monthly payment's going to suck. And just like Christian alluded to earlier, I'm going to tell them, I'm going to erase this. I'm going to tell them, because owning a home, and for an investor, if you're investing in a home, there are 4 ways you make money. You guys want to rattle them off? What's the first way? I always do it in a quadrant because it's easier. What's the first way you make money owning a home? In what way? Okay, so we're going to do a tax box. Let's talk as an investor because it's a little easier. When you own real estate, there's 2 ways that you can save on taxes, and this is probably the most important reason you invest in real estate.
Interest rate that you pay and,
So Christian said interest rate, which is just interest that you're paying on the property, and depreciation. So do you guys understand interest rate? Let's talk about that one. In the 90s, under President Bill Clinton, they passed a law that said any mortgage interest paid can be tax deductible. That is still true today. Every year they always threaten that's going to go away. I'm pretty sure we would have a true American uprising if that ever went away, because we are addicted to that incentive. It's one of the biggest incentives I've ever had in my life. Before I had children, the tax savings on real estate was my biggest tax deduction by a landslide, because I'm not military. Again, kids are a pretty big deduction, but this was just huge because I could write off all the mortgage interest, which I still do to this day, and then depreciation. What's depreciation? In context of taxes, not in context of market, but in context of taxes. What is depreciation?
it's the amount of money that your investment starts going down, like the value.
Yeah, so the best way I would describe this, and listen up, because this is how I describe it to like very, my first time investors, say, look, a home is built with earthly materials. It loses its value as it gets older. This carpet I'm standing on won't exist in 15 years from now, or certainly 25, 27 and a half years from now, it's going to need to get replaced because it has a life expectancy. And the IRS has said, we get it. Your home is built with earthly materials. Therefore, every year as it gets older, it gets less valuable. And so they will say you can do what's called a straight line depreciation schedule. And that is you can diminish the property value equally on a 27 and a half year schedule. And you can write that off on your taxes. Now I'm going to cheat and I'm just going to plant the seed that as you get more sophisticated with real estate investing, you'll learn about accelerated depreciation, which is called cost segregation. When I learned about cost segregation 4 years ago, I felt like I learned the secret of the rich. It will blow your mind, but essentially that's the IRS. There's code they don't talk about very loud that they've said, we understand that carpet doesn't last 27 and a half years. And they've actually created a schedule where if you pay for a cost segregation study on your property, they will go through every little piece of material in your house, every earthly item, and they will follow this IRS approved schedule and accelerate it. So they'll say carpet doesn't have 27 and a half year life, it's only 10. Those windows are only 15. Really only the structure is that long. They'll say these light fixtures are 5, the paint on the walls is only 5. And ultimately, they rob Peter to pay Paul, and they take that latter year depreciation and they bring it all up to the front. And so right out the gates, your first few years of owning real estate, you have a K1 schedule, but your taxes on your real estate say that you lost so much money. But did you actually lose money? No, you lost it through depreciation, and it completely reduces your tax liability. So when I discovered this 4 years ago, real estate was going good. I'm making about $1 million. My tax burden is like $150,000 I've got to pay in taxes every year. I do cost segregation on this building alone because I'm one of the owners of this building. We did cost segregation. Guess how much I paid in taxes that year?
No.
None. I have not paid taxes in 4.5 years, everybody. And my tax liability is like $150,000 a year. And I pay none of that because of cost segregation. That's what I'm going to say. When Obama was running against Romney, remember Romney got a bunch of heat because they said, hey, rich guy, you only pay 15% in taxes. And he says, yeah, but I'm not a tax cheater. I follow the tax code. Romney only pays about 15% in taxes because he has mastered cost segregation. And I didn't know that. I was so mad because the year that he was running and he said that, I looked at my taxes. Am I effective with state and federal? I was at 30% taxes. And I thought, why am like little old me like paying 30% and Romney, who's a gazillionaire, is only paying 15%? Like this world is messed up. And I was just mad until I took the time to ask, well, why is that? And I started reading articles. And then it took me a few years to actually figure out what is cost segregation. And that's one of the key things. Anyway, this is not an investment class, but I think that's important to understand.
So would you recommend to do the cost segregation, even though you're not making that much money right now? When will you start making the big bucks and then do it?
No, you can do it now because if you don't take it all here, you can pass it on to the next year. That's why still 4 years later, I still am not paying taxes because this was so big. But I've also cost segged a lot of other properties now too. But yeah, you can do it when you need it, but also
But if you do that right now,
you won't waste it is what I'm saying. You won't waste it. If you don't use it all, it'll pass. You can keep it for future years.
now, say, like if you want to buy another property, the amount that you are paying in taxes.
That's such an important question. You guys, if you didn't hear, he said, if you depreciate on cost seg and wipe out all your income, can you still qualify for properties? Yes, you can, because lenders can add the depreciation back into your income. Now, I will tell you though, it was a pain in my butt. When I got my last mortgage after doing all this, the underwriters just could not wrap their brain around adding it back in. I had to write multiple letters. I had to quote the tax code. It was painful. So be prepared that underwriters getting paid their $25 an hour aren't tax professionals. They really struggle with it, but you can add it back in. You just have to teach them how to do that and show them the code. And
Okay.
yeah, I know. Well, and I didn't mean for this to be an investment class, but we're going deep into Shane's question. But believe it or not, I have this conversation almost every day with clients when they say, why should I buy a house? Especially my investor friends right now, because there's still a lot of people out there that have money. I have multiple clients right now that say, well, I've got 100 grand in the bank. I want to go put it to work. I want to buy real estate, but should I? And I have to say, well, look, your cash flow right now, frankly, as an investor, is probably a negative number. You're probably negative $200. So I've got those two edge condos that I just talked about, both investors buying it. When I crunch the numbers, even with 25% down, when you pay a property manager and you pay all that stuff, they are negative $200. So why are they buying the condo?
Long-term equity.
Because A, we have determined, we just talked about earlier, that we're at the bottom with the condos. There's now multiple offers. So we're going to see some appreciation, even if it's not crazy 28% like 2021. The average for Utah for the history of recorded history in Utah is what? 4.4 in Utah. So Zoomers, I know you can't see the board, I'm writing this down, but our average appreciation rate for Utah since the pioneers said this is the place, or whenever, is about 4.4. So you can kind of bank on that if you're going to own this for 30 years, right? Cash flow still negative. The last one is debt reduction, right? The rent is just paying down the debt. So a portion of that is going to the bank. That's the same conversation I would have with first-time home buyers. Hey, your monthly payment is $1,800, but out of that $1,800, about $500 of that is going to principal. It's like putting it in the bank. And the other $1,300 in interest that you're paying is tax deductible, even if you occupy. That's not just for investors. If you occupy, that couple doesn't have any kids. So I told them, look, in my early days, that interest rate deduction alone was my biggest deduction on my taxes. And that puts a ton of money back in your pocket. So in the end, even though you're paying $1,800 instead of $800, if you factor in just those things, you're probably more like $800, but you're owning and you have that sense of pride, right? And so these things all together matter. When you talk to investors, especially amateur investors, the only thing they ever talk about is cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. Cash flow is the least important part of owning real estate. I'm going to say that again. Cash flow is the least important part of owning real estate. And as soon as you understand that and you can teach your investors, they will respect the heck out of you because they'll see real quick that taxes and debt reduction alone usually make buying real estate a good idea. Appreciation, of course, looks good on a balance sheet, but you never get this money until you sell 1031 exchange up to a big one or you refinance. You never really get that money. Whereas at least this stuff, well, I guess theoretically you don't get your debt reduction either until you sell. But this is a little more, you're just along for the ride. This is guaranteed. This is guaranteed. This, enjoy the ride. Is that helpful?
Definitely.
Very.
So timing, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just said it's very helpful. I was just answering, sorry.
Good. So let's go back to this original question. Mr. Seller is now, buyers. Okay, yeah, buyers, we've talked about that. It's a good time to buy if you have a long-term perspective, if you think like an investor. And ultimately, what's your lifestyle, right? Do you want to get out of that rental? Do you want a good lifestyle? Those are consultation questions. Remember, you guys, realtors are consultants. At the end of the day, people pay you a commission not for a house. They pay you for opinions, advice, and asking good questions. The best consultant out there asks the best questions. And so that's why I say big questions. So now let's answer. A seller comes to you and says, hey, Kim, should I sell my house right now or not? What's the first question you're going to ask back to that person?
You want to reinvest the money.
Bingo. The number one question I'm going to ask. If somebody says, is right now a good time to sell my house? I'm going to ask them, where are you going to put the cheddar? Where are you going to put that money? Why are you selling?
It's for anybody or just?
Anybody. Anybody calls me and says, I'm thinking about selling. Obviously, I'm going to say, well, why? What's going on? But more importantly, I'm going to say, where are you going to put that money? Because if they say, oh, well, I'm just going to buy a boat. Well, all right, you're spending your money then. You're no longer an investor. This is no longer investment money. You are making the decision to go spend your money, right? I want to know, and if they say, well, I want to sell right now because, most of the common answers for normal folks are, well, we want to sell right now because we want to buy XYZ. And so immediately when they say, is now a good time to sell, what they're really asking is, well, is now a good time to also buy? And so then I'm going to go into the conversation of the dominoes. If we sell right now, what are you buying and what is that effective change going to be? The next question I'm going to ask that, well, and again, if they're an investor, and this is what you hit on, if they're an investor, say, hey, I'm thinking about selling, and I say, why? And they say, well, because the market's tanking, we're down 13%. I am fearful. Remember we talked about FOMO? When the market's going down, what do we have? Fear. It's the fear of making a bad decision. So when the market's going up, everyone's like, just tell me where to sign, I'll buy it. Conversations are short and sweet. It's easy to be a realtor. When the market's going down, people are saying, I have 1,000 questions for you, Clay. Should I do this? Should I do this? How do I do this? Am I making the right decision? And you are a cheerleader. You're as much as you are a consultant of saying, hey, like fear is real, but let's let logic guide the conversation and let's get down to the numbers. And then it's tons of conversations, tons of hand holding. So right now a buyer takes, I would honestly say, triple the amount of time today than it did a year ago for me. Triple the amount of time. I'm doing 2 or 3 consultations. Every time we're out looking at houses, we're pulling out a piece of paper and saying, okay, let's do some math on this house. Let's really talk through it. Whereas a year ago, I'd have people walk into Arrive Homes and say, hey, Shane showed me an Arrive Home, Clay, write up the offer, and I'd get a commission check and I didn't even have to step foot in the door. And you guys hated that, and I totally understand it because I'm a listing agent too, but it happened and we got paid for not even looking at the house. It was that easy. But that's just not the case right now. People have a lot of fear. And so we've got to walk them through it. So when an investor says, well, I'm fearful, I want to move my money, I'm going to ask them, well, where's better than real estate? You have to prove it, not just to me, but prove it to yourself. Are you putting the money somewhere truly better than where it's at right now? And if somebody says crypto, kick them in the shin. If somebody says the stock market, well, let's look at what has the stock market done and what's its trend. It's worse than real estate right now. Where are you putting that money? Usually the only arguments that are going to win for me are, I'm going to put it into education. I'm investing in myself. Awesome. Hallelujah. Great. Sure. Maybe argument of, I'm going to put it into a new business, a startup business. Or of course, the most common that's a fair argument is I want to move it up to 1031 exchange into more real estate. But the problem with that, and my next question to everybody, but especially that, is what is our current interest rate?
Sorry.
So, Mr. Seller, you want to sell your house and your interest rate is 3%. You're going to sell your house. Let's just use your typical, oh, I'm selling my house because I want more space. We just had triplets. We have tons of kids. We need more space. We just want to upsell right now. I'm going to say, okay, I totally feel your pain. You need more space. You've got a gazillion kids right now. You need more space. Valid concern. It's a great time to buy in terms of prices. Prices have come down, so we can go get you a nice big house that used to cost $1 million for $850,000 right now. Arrive, I'll pick on Arrive. Taylor Meadows is a great example that I love using. Taylor Meadows there was homes that are 1.3, 1.2 million. You can pick up right now for $1 million flat, maybe even in the 900s, and maybe get the basement half finished. I don't know. And so it's like, okay, we can go get you a good deal, but on that purchase, you're going to be at 6.5% interest rate. So your monthly payment's going to be X. What's your monthly payment right now? Well, gosh, we're only at 3%. We're only paying $2,500 right now. So, okay, you're going to go from $2,500 to $6,500 on that $1 million home. These are real conversations I've had with people. You can go from 25 to 65. Is the space worth that much to you? And a lot of people are going to say, no, it's not worth it. I'm going to say, that's the answer that Jerome Powell wants you to say, because he doesn't want you buying houses. He wants to stop the economy. And so that's literally what's happening right here. But sometimes a lot of people say, well, maybe. And what would you do, Clay? People always ask that. Well, what would you do? Because we're obviously out of space. And that's where the more sophisticated conversations of, if their rate is low, then yes, we should sell your home, but we should sell it and offer seller financing. And I don't want this to be a seller financing class, but again, I want you to plant the seed of right now, this is how you get homes sold for a top dollar. Because again, seller financing, you can say, okay, we're going to carry your mortgage note. We're going to only charge the borrower 4.5%. So the monthly payment can be far lower, even though they might be paying a higher price. So you can get a higher price for your home. You can also make a residual income for the next several years by having your rate so low. You can have some residual income. Then you can take that residual income and apply it toward your next big fat payment. I had a closing just yesterday that was this exact thing. First time home buyer, well, not first time home buyers. They had a home, they're moving up. They're moving from a $425,000 home is what I sold it for. They're buying a $700,000 home. Their mortgage is going from $1,500 to $4,500. It's a big jump. I said, but we got to do it. We're out of space. We want to do it. But I said, well, does your new home have an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, an apartment? They said, it sure does. And I said, awesome. So you're going to get $1,750 is what they leased it out for. They told me just yesterday. So now their monthly payment is closer to only, $2,500. And I said, also, if we sell your current home as a seller financing note, they're going to pay you $1,824 is their monthly payment. Your monthly payment with the taxes pulled out of it is only $1,300. So you'll make about $500 on your seller financing. So you apply that. Now they're buying a $700,000 house with an effective payment of $2,000. And they're doing it. And they fund today.
How much the seller financing for?
You choose.
Oh, yeah.
So on this one, we decided you've got to put 20% down. They actually negotiated. We ended up accepting about 17 or 18% down payment. And we did it for 5 years.
So
It's amortized on a 30-year schedule, of course. That's why the payment's so low. But we said in 5 years, it's due. You have to pay. It's called a balloon. It balloons in 5 years. You owe it. And if you don't pay it, we will foreclose on you. Keep your down payment and take the house. So they have to pay it in 5 years. They can prepay sooner. If rates go down, because we're at 4.5%, if rates got better than 4.5%, they could refinance earlier. They could sell it earlier. They own the home. We just are now in a mortgage position.
So question, at the end of the 5 years, the buyer will pay the amount that the house is worth after 5 years,
Yep, it's the payoff.
at the payoff.
Mhm.
Okay, so they'll have to.
They still paid the full amount today, but now they have a mortgage note to my sellers for the balance. So for $360,000 is ours. So at the end of 5 years, they have to pay the rest. The $365,000, they have to pay us off. And they'll do that either by refinancing or selling.
Okay, so I can get any of the debt that's been built for the last 5 years.
Good point. No, because we're a bank. We're fixed. So if it goes way up, the new owners get that equity. If it goes way down, they have to pay the difference. We're
Because
fixed, just like a bank.
range is-
Yeah.
that it would get.
No, that's not seller. That would be like a lease option.
Yeah.
That'd be like a rent to own. And you guys, I don't want this to go over your head. I know this is like Ignite #1, but I do want to plant these seeds of this is the conversation that you should be having with your clients. People want to know, if I'm going to sell, why should I sell? How can I maximize the dollars? Take the time to learn seller financing. We teach classes here at KW almost weekly on seller financing. At least we have the last year. We didn't even breathe a word of it until last year when rates got high. And all of a sudden now it's like, we got to talk about it because we've got to, frankly speaking, we got to cut the lender out if the rates are going to be this high. I don't know. Let's get the schedule.
Okay.
And maybe that's a good time. Part of the agenda, as you can see on here, is KW Resources. I want you guys all to be very aware of a few things. Let's just this is like total change of conversation. But be aware of first, the Keller Williams calendar. It's on kwwestfield.com. You can also get it from the front desk. You can also even link the calendar into your Google Calendar and you can toggle it on or off. So if you want to see the classes, you're right at that stage. Go through it just like you're back in high school and circle the ones you want and put the classes you want. You chose Keller Williams most likely for education. Use it. Use it, use it. Am I out of time, Molly? News for you. Don't feel like you have that on your head. Thanks, Ritz. You can just have Hunter, who introduced the beginning of the class. I would just say, hey, Hunter, help me out here. Because in fact, Molly, who just stuck her head in, Molly, I think, is the one that actually does it, where she will just do it for you. She'll take care of all that stuff. Yeah. Yep. So calendar here at KW, get plugged in. Also know the staff and their roles. The people that you should know first and foremost, Shoni acts as we call him the team leader here at KW. Essentially, he's the CEO of the office. His job is to recruit top agents and then to consult. And he usually consults, well, I mean, you can schedule appointments with him at any time, but his job is to recruit and consult and then to lead the office in quite a few decisions. The next person to know is Molly, who just stuck her head in. Molly is agent services in terms of helping getting your command set up, or at least pointing you in the right direction, making sure your tech is good, all of that. Hunter is kind of in a similar role. You guys already met Hunter, but Hunter, use him. He's a good resource. If you need help connecting to anything or just getting pointed in the right direction in terms of all things KW, he's your guy. Now, probably one of the most important people for you to know when you have your first deal is Dean Crandall. Dean is the principal broker. He's the compliance broker. His job is to make sure you're filling out contracts correctly, that you're negotiating correctly. And we have a lot of classes. So sometimes if you ask him what might seem as a dumb question, and there is no dumb question because we need to get our contracts right, he'll answer it, but he'll probably say, you need to attend the class WITSE, or you need to attend the class whatever, where we have just fundamental classes on filling out the contracts right, understanding. Because again, the licensing doesn't always teach you all of that stuff. It'll touch a little bit on contract law negotiations, but it's not going to dive into the seller financing addendum, for example. It's not going to dive into well, I'm selling my brother a house, therefore I have to have a disclosure of interest clause because I learned in the test that I have to disclose that I'm related to my buyer. How do I do that? Well, there's an addendum in the MLS here. There's so much to learn. Yeah.
So WITSE is compliance.
Yep. WITSE is just how do you work with the office and stay in compliance and keep your license safe. I couldn't even tell you what WITSE stands for. It's another stupid acronym. We have
What
too
if
many
they
of them.
say yes?
Who says yes?
It says, what if they say yes?
The what?
What if
WITSE stands
Who-
for what if they say yes?
Oh, I'm like, what if who says yes? Oh, what if they say yes? WITSE. Thank you. I was so confused there for a second. I was like, what if who says yes? Oh yeah, WITSE. What if they say yes? Which, by the way, I was in Ignite, when I was 22 years old. We called it Camp 443 at the time. I started making my calls. When my buddy said, hey, I do want to list my townhome, I ran out there, did a listing appointment. Well, I didn't know what I was doing. I literally brought a sign with me because I thought, well, he called me, I'll just bring the sign with me. And I put up the sign. And he said, well, what do we think we should price my home at? I said, I have no idea. Let me go back to my office and I'll tell you. It was fun because I came back here to KW and I ran into like the day desk areas that we have upstairs. And it wasn't this building, but we had the same kind of setup. And I came in and I said, they just said yes, what do I do? And it was so fun though, because there are multiple agents that said, congratulations, let me help you do a CMA. So they helped me kind of do a CMA, called my buddy, here's the price. Said, okay, great, get started. Said, okay, now what do I do, everybody? And they said, well, talk to this guy. And he said, well, you need to fill out a listing agreement. I said, what in the heck is a listing agreement? So I filled it, and it was really nice. And I want you guys to understand that that is the culture of KW. Go ask for help. Don't feel like every question has to go to the staff, to Dean or somebody. Like, we want a culture here of open door, open book. We'll help each other out. I'm happy to help people. I had help when I was first starting out. I'm happy to pass it along. There's a lot of people that will help you out and we'll get it done. There's a ton of resources here, and it's going to feel like you're drinking from the fire hose. And so I want you guys coming to Ignite because you'll learn certain principles and you'll always be given homework assignments. And we have to end with this, because this is like literally the whole point of this first class, and I haven't even talked about it. And we only have 5 minutes left. So you're a realtor now. You walk into the office, you say, okay, I've got my GPS, I see the calendar, but what is my job? This is the fundamentals of Ignite. This is what you should be held accountable for. This is what you will be doing, hopefully, for the rest of your life. 16 years later, I am still doing this in some fashion every single day. This is your job every day. It's called the 10-4. The 10-4, there's 4 of them. The first thing you're going to do is you are going to add 10 people to your database. Okay? Your database is your business. When you're in the real estate game, if you have no database and no people, you do not have a business. If you don't have people to talk to, you have no business. I will just remind everybody, the first time, usually when we have a whole bunch of like brand new, just got my license, I'll always ask the question, why did you get into real estate? And oftentimes people say, I love home design. I love architecture. I love decor. I love HGTV. And it looks so cool. And I get to be the one that says, well, guess what? That is not this business. You're a realtor, not a designer, not an architect, and not a movie producer. You are a realtor, and your job has nothing to do with those. You're actually not in the real estate business. You are in the lead generation business, the people business, the relationship business. Your job, you're getting paid a commission to talk, to consult, to help people make good decisions. Your product is not houses. People don't pay you for houses. Your product's not houses. Your product is consultations. And we have to get that around our head. So number one, you're going to add 10 people to your database. Number two, you're going to have 10 conversations every day. Introverts, this is the part where we can all feel uncomfortable. This was the hardest thing for me as a new agent too, is when they said, we expect you to talk to 50 people every single week. If you join Bold, it's 100, by the way. Bold is like the superior boot camp class that you go through. If you don't talk to 100 people a week, you get a strike, and 3 strikes, they kick you out of the class. So this is low bar, because that's 20 a day. But the 10-4 says we want you having 10 conversations a day. Are handwritten cards dead? They've never been more alive. Everyone thinks they're dead, but handwritten cards, businesses just aren't doing them like they used to. But I promise you, they are still more effective now than ever before. Yeah.
This is just a funny little side note about people and cards. My husband just had his ACL surgery done, and he got a handwritten card from the nurses. Everybody that helped him at the hospital, they sent him a card, and he thought that was the nicest thing
Right?
ever.
And it was probably hand signed.
He goes, sign it. You can tell they're all different signatures. And I just thought it was funny that he loved that. And that proves what that does right there.
Yeah, the only handwritten cards I get in my life right now are my doctor sent me a handwritten card and a few other realtors. When I'm doing transactions, every once in a while, a realtor or a lender will drop me a little card. And it is absolutely meaningful. And so at the beginning of your business, these 10 thank you cards will oftentimes be to your contacts, right? But as you progress in your business right now, I'm not writing a ton of thank you cards to my clients. I'm usually sending boxes of crumble, frankly, right? But I do a lot of thank you cards to other realtors, other professionals, because they are relationship building to a T. I mean, it is really impactful. And so Ignite is going to challenge all of you guys for the month of March. Add 10 people to your database. Right now, your database can be housed in Command. It's free. You're already paying for, I shouldn't say free. It's part of the $55 a month at KW. So you've got Command. So add 10 people until you have how many in your database? The goal is 200. And what's so secret about 200? Because Gary Keller did all this research and determined that agents that have 200 people in their database, getting a good 36 touch, getting their quarterly phone calls, getting dripped on, getting communicated with, will yield, for every 12 people in the database, they will yield 1 direct buy or sell and 1 referral of a buy and sell. So it's a 2 to 12 ratio. So 200 means 33 transactions. You sell 33 houses in this economy, you are making $200,000 to $300,000 GCI. After your expenses, after taxes, whatever, you're taking home 175 grand. It's an incredible, incredible business. And that's just from 200 contacts. And that's less than 10 a day if you're on a quarterly basis. Okay. Well, before I do 4, I'll give you the best example because I know we're out of time. The best advice I got when I was in Ignite on doing this, I thought, what in the world am I going to say to 10 people? I'm just going to tell you right now. So listen up, everybody. This is what I would say. It's going to be a little different for you, Shane. But you're going to say, hey, everybody, I'm calling my friends and family to announce and let them know that I'm in real estate now. And I've decided to build a word of mouth business instead of a stupid billboard business. Therefore, I'm calling to ask you, would you commit to calling me anytime you have a conversation with somebody that talks about real estate, whether it's to buy a house, sell a property, invest, whatever it might be, would you do me the honors of sending me a referral by calling me and letting me know? Would you do that? And I asked that question very specifically. I want to get them to say, yeah, you bet, I'll help you build your business. Ah, thank you so much. That means the world to me. By the way, did anybody come to mind as we're talking that you think I might be able to help out? Because the market is crazy. There's a lot of good deals. There's a lot of interesting things happening. I'd love to talk to them. If you, no, I can't think of anybody. Ah, no big deal. I'll follow up with you. If you ever think of somebody, will you let me know? Have a nice life. Bye. So there's a few things in there that are important. First of all, own it. Own the fact that real estate agents are in the word of mouth business. What's nice is there's a limiting belief that's going to chatter in your ear saying, oh, you sound like an MLM. It's awkward to call your friends and family and ask for business. I promise you, it's not awkward. People know the insurance agents, realtors. There are professions that are in the word of mouth business. Everybody knows that realtors are in the word of mouth business. You're not calling them to sell them the latest and greatest stupid MLM or something like that. It's just, no, I'm asking for a referral because I've decided to treat this like a word of mouth business. I've set some really big goals for this year and this is how I want to grow it. Will you help me out? People love helping you out too. They're going to say yes. Nobody will say no. They'll say, yeah, you bet. And then that allows you very easily to hang up the phone and write 10 thank you cards. Hey, Christian, thank you so much for committing to calling me when you have a conversation with somebody that talks about real estate. It means the world to me that you'll help me grow my business through word of mouth referrals. Thanks, Clay. Easiest thing to write in the world, right? And then you send it off. Now, notice my language too is not, hey, Christian, thanks for committing to telling people to call me when they think about real estate. I'm very deliberate in saying, hey, thanks for committing to call me to tell me about your friends so that I could reach out. Your success rate is far higher. I don't want my friends passing out my business cards. I want my friends to have that amazing moment where they say, hey, Clay, I was just talking to my friend Billy Bob over here. They want to buy a house. You should call them. And I can say, oh, you're so amazing. Thank you so much. By the way, what's your address again? 123 Fake Street. Oh, that's cool. Hang up. And guess who's getting a box of crumble cookies? Every time somebody gives me a referral, I send them something of value, at least $25 or more. I did Cafe Rio gift cards for a year. Right now, it's crumble cookies because it's so easy. But I always reward the act, even before I talk to Billy Bob. If I call Billy Bob and they say, oh no, Shane was smoking something, I don't want to buy a house, I'm still sending crumble cookies because psychology has taught us I want to reward the behavior. I want all of my friends to know that if all they do is text me a referral and say, hey, you should talk to my mom. She was thinking about downsizing. Crumble cookies, something. I want to reward that behavior because it pays off. Now, 16 years later, I get a referral almost every single day from my people. Somebody is sending me a message, sometimes saying, hey, and I send we sent what, 2 boxes of crumble cookies last week. We'll probably have more this week. 3 boxes of crumble cookies, like.
And you got full like responses via text. It was like,
yeah, people were like, oh my gosh, thanks for the cookies.
Yeah.
Like, you're so cool. But yeah.
and with even the phone calls, because you know it's brand new for me to be calling Clay's clients, and so it's always that little nervy feeling of just kind of you know. And but even talking to one of your family members today, who I'm sure you've talked to at some point in time, he's the one that said, it was Nick Lloyd. He said, hey, he goes, yeah, I'm thinking about investing, you know, in about 6 months. And has he said that to you in the past little while? Maybe, I don't know.
No, last time I talked to him, he was going to move to Washington to get out of Utah and get away from all the Mormons.
And he said, I don't really know of anybody right at the moment, but this is what I'm thinking for myself.
Sweet.
So that's
Yeah, I was
kind
gonna
of
say,
a
when
cool
you ask for
response, right?
referrals, it's also obvious that like you're asking, do you have any personal needs as well?
Yeah.
So I hope that script helps on these. The last of the 10-4 is preview 10 homes a day. Now, that used to mean physically go walk through 10 homes. That's going to take hours and hours and hours. My recommendation is two things. First of all, learn the MLS and get set up on your niche markets. The first niche market you should become an absolute pro on is where you live. Where do you live, Shane? Elk Ridge. Can you tell me every single home for sale in Elk Ridge right now? You probably should, because Elk Ridge probably only has about 30 maybe for sale. Is there more than 30? Besides the new, there's probably more than 30, I guess. Elk Ridge, I guess, is a little bigger than that. South Mountain, south part of the valley. My point being, if you can't say, like I've got multiple neighbors for sale, I know exactly what their price is. I know exactly how many days they've been on market because I have what's called a hot sheet. Well, they're just called alerts now. The MLS, you can create alerts. I want you to figure out what your niches are. One of my niches, of course, working with investors, you better believe I look at every single duplex, triplex, fourplex apartment building that comes up for sale in this county. There's not very many. I get a duplex about every other day is all, and they're usually pretty crummy, and they're usually price reductions of the same one every time. But right now, if you said, hey, are there any good duplexes? I would say, no, there's one in Provo right now that's kind of decent on the numbers, but it looks kind of hammered. We'd have to check it out. And I saw it come over my email yesterday. So preview online at least 10 homes that you were scrolling, you were learning, and you were getting. The faster you can get the MLS into your brain on niche markets, the more baller you will be when you're talking to people and they say, I'm thinking about buying a BYU condo right now. What are the BYU condos right now? Well, guess what? You can buy a Belmont condo right now for $330,000. We might get them lowered about $320,000, and your monthly payment will be right around, if you put 20% down, your monthly payment will be right around $2,000. Those are real numbers because I look at them, I crunch them because I have a client, looking for BYU condos. So figure out your niches. Your niche must be where you live first. That would be so idiotic for you to be walking down the street and your neighbor says, hey, I got your voicemail that you're in real estate right now and you're looking for referrals. I don't have any referrals, but I'm curious, what are the Johnsons selling their house for? And you say, hold on, let me hurry and look up my app. You dang well better know the immediate neighborhood around you. Because I'll tell you anyway, I tell you story after story of me getting business just because I know the MLS. And the last tip I will give you on this, visit every single model home. At some point early on in your career, know the new construction communities and know them well. Why? Because it's not on the MLS. The fact that I can tell you Edge is all sold out isn't because of the MLS. It's because I stay in touch with Edge's agents and I stay in touch with the community. And I always point to Lehigh because that's where all the hubbub is. But know the model home. The minute you see some new announcement, like we had the Keystone guy that bought us lunch yesterday, said, hey, we've got some model homes up in Rockwell in American Fork by the railroad track, by the new, not new, but the track station. Go walk through that model home. Take the time to say, what are you selling? Okay, your townhomes in the 400s, your condos in the 300s, your single family homes. Awesome. Well, Richmond Americans down the road, your competitor. Yeah, they're a competitor. Walk down, go into Richmond's model home. All right, talk to me. What's Richmond up to? Go to Lennar. Visit as many model homes as you can. Meet the model home agents. Give them their business card because new construction is like the wild, wild west. Some of it's on the MLS, not all of it on the MLS, but it is very powerful when you meet with buyers and they say, hey, we're thinking about one of these new townhomes. What would you recommend? And for you to immediately, without pulling up the app, say, Lennar's got some cool stuff in North Shore at $350 right now. This is true. They have townhomes at $350, but there's no basements. There's no dining room. They are small like a condo, but they have a 2-car garage and they've got a full-length driveway. Pretty sweet deal. Or go to Arrive Homes in Cold Springs, big 2,400 square, well, you're all sold out now, but big 2,400 square foot townhomes. I say you're always going to be Arrive to me, not Edge. Anyway, you guys get the point. Visit these. Now, we've got to end, but I want you to understand that other teachers, when you come on Friday, they're going to ask you, they should at least if they're doing their job right, they're going to say, report out. Did you do your 10-4? When I took this class, we had a big board on the wall and we had everyone's name and you only got 3 strikes. We all had to write a $100 check. And if you got 3 strikes, your check gets deposited and that's what was used to pay for a pizza party at the end. They don't do that anymore, but think like that. Don't go more, don't miss. And I know this is so painful. And that's why I say even 16 years later, Am I doing 10 calls a day and 10 thank you cards? No, but I'm certainly more than 5 calls a day between different leads and different SOI, to the point where I value this so much. I literally hired Kim sitting here to help me do this. That's how important the 10-4 is. It's because I realize I'm only getting 3, 4, 5 calls in a day. My database is about 400 people. I'm more like, gosh, like 10 a day. It's not quite 10 a day, but it's going to be close to 10 a day. I got to the point where I literally hired somebody to do the 10-4. That's how fundamental this is to consistently generating new business. Did we learn anything today? Was this helpful? We were all over the map.
So good. So good.
Good. I'm glad you liked it. Guys, I can promise you there's a QR code here. Ignite has a manual that has so much more information. We were supposed to do like 3 chapters. What was good? It was like get to know KW, get to know the market, and understand what your job is. Hopefully we touched on enough things that we checked those boxes, but I promise you Ignite gets into like the nitty-gritty details. It's probably worth a glance over, go through it, look at these things. But your schedule, Ignite is going to be every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9:30 in this room. Zoomers, you're always welcome to join Zoom. If you can get in person, that'll usually be a little more valuable because you can get spit on from the instructors. But what's cool about Ignite too is it'll always be taught by different people, and it's always taught by usually the top producers in the office. Most everybody teaching you has made $1 million a year in real estate. That's what's really cool about our office is we've got 350 agents here, and you've got some really cream of the crop agents that do a lot of business, and there's not too many questions you'll ask that will stump them. They should be able to answer most questions. We have 26 brokers in this office. It's the most brokers in any single office in the county. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, take a picture of this. Zoomers, you guys have questions, ahas, anything to share before we sign off? We're out of time, but I'm happy to answer
The
questions.
QR code.
Say again?
I can't see the QR code to take a picture.
Oh, it's right there, down.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, if I stand right here, can you see it?
Get closer still, just a little bit closer still.
This owl is kind of freaky. It follows you as you walk around. Did you guys see it?
Oh, hold on, it's still not reading it. It's sideways.
Oh, hold on a sec. Let me see what you can see. I might just have to have them email it out.
That's fine. Just
Um,
that works, Clay. No
let's-
problem.
Yeah. So cool. You guys see it has multiple cameras, so it sees like it like makes, yeah, it like has this big wide angle at the top. Just like it's like whoever's like, so if I'm quiet and you start talking, it should like go grab you. Yeah. Renelle, thank you for your comments. Thank you guys. I'll have Hunter send this QR code out.
Wondering.
We'll just text it. We'll text it.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Renelle, actually, do you want to text it? We'll just grab Renelle's number right now.
Yep.
Renelle, what's your phone number?
801-404-8798.
Perfect. Kim's going to just text you right now. She just took a
Thank
picture
you.
of it.
I really appreciate
Hey,
it.
thank you, Shane. I'm so glad that I knew you were actually, that I know you're actually here now. Yeah, one of the biggest challenges you're going to have is re-identifying in your people, like all your past clients, that you can now, that you're an everything agent.